And in Spain and Portugal, there's a big expat community of kind of people who move from Northern Europe to Spain and Portugal. And what I noticed is that whenever I went into a house where there was maybe dark red, like a burgundy,
Dark red.
it's sort of like a really kind of burgundy, deep red. What I found is there was always, without a doubt, someone in the family who never wanted to move.
It was a client, but then she chose only first stage of the design works, because after I asked some question from the discussion from the first kick meeting, and then we provide her with the house that she needs, she finally understand that she wants to get divorced with his husband.
Oh, wow.
So it was that kind of question that makes her think, what kind of space do you want? Why do you like to spend your time there? And blah, blah, blah. And then after the first session of design, he said like, wow, your questions make me want to change my...
Not just my house.
Not just my house.
Halo sahabat-sahabat Urban Dukun, kita ketemu lagi dalam acara Urban Dukun Podcast. Dan sekarang saya punya guest yang luar biasa, sahabat guru saya, Mark Wentworth dari UK.
I'm back.
Halo Mark. Kita ketemu lagi. Dan kita juga ada Mbak Ratih dari HaAra Studio. Selamat datang Mbak Ratih, terima kasih banyak sudah mau hadir di acara ini.
Sama-sama, terima kasih banyak.
Kita udah banyak ngobrol mengenalkan Mark sebagai Global Color Ambassador dan founder dari I'm Colour for Life. Mark juga menemukan sebuah modalitas yang bernama Colour PsychoDynamics. Colour PsychoDynamics adalah sebuah sistem kita mengenal diri kita lebih baik lagi dan menjadi diri kita yang terbaik, karena setiap orang punya warnanya masing-masing. Dan mengenali warna itu, kita menjadi warna kita yang terbaik. Tapi kalau saya mengenalkan Colour PsychoDynamics kepada teman-teman, siapapun itu, selalu pertanyaannya adalah, terus gimana aplikasinya dalam hidup saya? Dan jawaban saya biasanya itu kita bisa mengaplikasikan warna dalam hidup kita itu bisa melalui fashion, aksesoris, pemilihan warna baju. Dan kita bisa mengaplikasikan warna itu di rumah kita, tempat tinggal kita. Dan untuk alasan itulah kami mengundang Mbak Ratih di sini. Silakan Mbak Ratih, tolong perkenalkan sama viewers kita what you do.
Oke, jadi ini nggak apa-apa pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya Mbak ya?
Ya, kita bisa bicara bahasa Indonesia. Now, we're gonna start with Indonesian and we're gonna switch into English when it's your part. Or whatever Mbak Ratih is comfortable with.
Oke, jadi aku adalah founder dan design director dari HaAra Studio. Dan HaAra Studio ini sebenarnya tahun ini umurnya yang keempat. Terus apalagi ya, kita tuh memang approach-nya adalah personalized design. Memang sebenarnya semua studio design tuh pasti ada personalized design. Cuman memang jujur aja studio ini tuh lahir ada calling dari dalam pada waktu itu, dan calls, and then pada waktu itu sih cukup sentimental gitu ya, sangat sentimental, jujur sangat sentimental bahwa kamu harus bikin studio sendiri dengan cara yang seperti ini. Itu tuh jelas banget pada waktu itu tuh very crystal clear gitu. Jadi harus seperti itu caranya, dan memang tujuannya adalah harmonizing energy through space gitu. Tapi gimana ya caranya? Oh, I don't know. Pokoknya I believe that space could influence the user. Aku believe banget sama hal itu. Terus gimana caranya? Ya udah pokoknya sambil belajar aja. Intinya kayak gitu. Jadi kalau sekarang ya di tahun yang keempat ini tuh sebenarnya kita arahnya tuh lebih kayak pengen bikin yang sanctuary feelings. Kenapa? Soalnya tuh penting banget kalau ruangan atau space itu punya connectedness sama yang menggunakannya gitu. Karena dengan connectedness itu dia bisa connect sama lingkungan sekitarnya, sama sesama user yang lain di dalam ruangan tersebut, atau dengan dirinya sendiri gitu. Jadi emang we aim that goal. Si studio ini tuh bisa membantu orang lain lewat hal organizing dan designing sebuah space yang meaningful buat user kita gitu sih.
Keren banget, makasih Mbak Ratih. Jadi lucu banget sih kita bisa kayak nyambung gitu. Waktu aku create Urban Dukun itu kan sebagai sebuah tempat, a safe space for healing. Space di sini tuh bukan maksudnya hanya terbatas pada ruangan yang fisik, tapi ruang hati yang aman supaya healing itu bisa terjadi. Dan kalau di sisi bisnisnya kita memang offering workshop, retreat, dan one-on-one sessions ya. Jadi proses penyembuhan itu sendiri. Tapi dan pengalaman aku bahwa penyembuhan, healing does not happen if one, the person doesn't know themselves.
Yes.
Two, the space is not a safe space.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Tapi my understanding of a safe space is the trust, the bonding, the community, and it's so interesting that you have evolved that idea. We have similar idea, and you have evolved it into a materials living space.
Yeah, if you talk like that, it's more like intangible things about safe place. And I was like, how to make it tangible, how to make it material, so it could help the user to feel that power of healing to the user. I mean, like that.
So amazing. What do you say about that, Mike? A safe,
a safe place for
safe
healing.
Place.
Yep, I think kind of home. I think it's clarifying, and I'm sure you agree with this.
Yeah.
About the difference between a house and a home.
And a home.
Yes.
Because I remember many years ago when I was living in Portugal, there was an interior designer a friend who came to my house. She was an interior designer, and I said, I was curious, and I said, what do you think? And she said, well, the question is, do you want it to look perfect, or do you want it to look as though Mark lives here?
That's exactly the good questions, honestly.
Yep. And to me, there was no question, because the easiest answer is, I want it to look as though I live here, because I wanted that sense of home, because then home should be that sanctuary that whatever happens on the outside, when you come home, it is that sanctuary of peace, healing, recharging, regeneration, the sense of home.
Instead of just a house. Wow.
Because I had a different experience of working with a client in Turkey, and she'd had an interior designer, and the interior designer so we were sitting in her house, but she said, oh, come to the conservatory, like the outside space. And I said, why are we sitting in here and not in your house? She said, well, all our old furniture is out here. We feel much more comfortable here than we do in here.
Okay.
And she said, because when we looked at the space, it was not a functional family living space. Like there was a chaise longue, and they were a family of 4, and everyone was not going to fit on a chaise longue.
So it's like a lot of emptiness.
Yes, and so it had this feeling that you knew who the designer was, but you didn't know who lived there.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's what I've experienced, and that's why it's so refreshing to meet someone like yourself, to hear that it's considering what home actually means. Yeah.
May I add a little?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if the client doesn't know how they would like their home, the first thing they showed us like Pinterest pictures.
Yep.
And it was like, this is the trendy Pinterest pictures.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of things like that.
Yep.
I can so relate. And then a few years later, we're looking at our house and like,
Yep.
Is this the luxury? Is this the trendy house that I want? Or is this the house that I want for the home itself? That's the question when we have a discovery session in our first kick meeting with clients. Like, what do you want in your home? How do you feel in your home? It's always start with client understanding and project understanding first. So it's about the user and the space they would live in. Like, the space could really affect that much. If the space is only just long shape, it will be how to remake it to be more intimate. If the space is too narrow, how to make it, things like that. So it's the user and the space itself.
And you build that connection so they can feel that harmony within the space that they're going to call home.
I have a question. So I'm curious, but when you were talking about kind of Pinterest and kind of like what's fashionable. So, and I don't know if it's the same here in Indonesia, but in the UK and Northern Europe, the trend for interiors is grey.
Grey, okay.
It's what's happening.
And
not happening in my house.
And it's kind of really trendy. You look in all the kind of magazines, and it's kind of the grey. And they ask my perspective, and we're kind of a little bit at odds because from the therapeutic use of colour, grey actually puts a barrier and it stops you from feeling. So it's like an emotional block. So, and also, living in Northern Europe, when we have a lot of cloud and a lot of grey clouds, and in there, and people are always saying when it's grey clouds, they're saying, "Oh, it's so depressing. Oh, I wish it was when the wait for the sun come out." And I keep saying, so why would you want to decorate your interiors when you're complaining about the grey skies outside? Why do you want to surround yourself with grey?
As we understand, colors is also about something that our unconscious is communicating. Having gray as a trend, does that say anything about the collective unconscious?
I kind of think that's not all greys, because there's many greys which are...
There's layers of grey.
There's layers of grey, but there's a kind of what I call kind of an English grey. English country grey.
Enlighten us about the English grey. Please.
And like, for example, a different aspect, but one time I was doing a program for Manchester United television, and there is a famous game that Manchester United played against Southampton, and they were wearing a grey football strip, and then at half time all the players were complaining that they couldn't see each other. Now, the one thing about grey, it creates this sense of invisibility. And so it's the only time in football history where they've allowed a club to change colours.
I see.
They change the colours and then they won. But coming back to the grey, so grey has this invisibility, and yes, you can put other colours with it. So I'm always probably like you, I'm always asking people, so when you come into this room or this space, how do you want to feel? Or what is the main purpose that's going to happen in here, and how do you want to feel in this space?
I doubt that any of them say, "No, I want to be invisible."
But but invisible, but there's no, like you were saying, is a place to recharge. It's not so much a colour of recharge.
Grey is not so much of a colour of recharge.
It's more of an emotional block.
So I add a little about that. Today's trend for interior design in Indonesia, mostly about Japanese Scandinavian.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a lot of our clients, and they said we love Japanese very much.
Yep.
And then the basic color for every for mostly every cluster in Indonesia is gray with gray to white.
Okay,
The undertone is it's like white, but the undertone is gray.
Yes.
So it's not that really gray, but the undertone is
It's
gray.
great. I know. Yes. Yep.
And then another color is white that the undertone is lime.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The lime of white.
Okay.
So it's more creamy. It's more warm. So it's like I thought it was like a neutral color. I thought it was like a very neutral color.
Yep.
So if we put something in the house, it will be like stands out.
Yes. Yep.
Something like that.
Yes.
So the color trends mostly we look up to the magazine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the what I know from the magazine, they said like we studied the color and then we choose the color that would trend in another year.
Yep.
Something like that. So I was like, okay, they studied and then maybe we can use some of the trend if it's suitable with the clients.
Yep.
Something like that. So it's really interesting if gray is not really approachable to human and human connection.
It's kind of it's exactly as you said. It's very neutral. But I think probably like you're saying is because it's such a pale, like kind of like you said, it's white, but the undertone is grey.
Yeah.
It's not so as grey,
Yeah.
like a very definite grey.
Yeah.
That's kind of, and it's interesting you say about like trends and things like that, because they're always looking at 3 or 4 years ahead.
Based
on society. And I'm curious, has there ever been a study here about uses of colour in interiors in different parts of the country? Because like in the United Kingdom, they found that even though London is the capital of England, they were the most conservative in their experimental use of colour. Whereas the northwest of England, which is kind of Liverpool and Manchester, much more experimental. They were much more daring to make change. And also what they found in a study is in the UK, it takes 3 months from the decision to thinking about or the idea about changing a colour in interior to actually making it happen.
So it's like a collective experience?
Yeah. No, for a couple or an individual, it would take, I think I want to change the colours in my interior. It would then take 3 months for them to actually do it.
There's a lot of considerations.
Yes. Yep. So do you have the same here where there's different parts of the country that are more experimental with sort of daring to try out more colour or than others?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if there's any specific studies, but from my travel, I noticed some areas like a certain color, like probably in Sumatra, they like the color to be more blinks, more goldish. But what I noticed Jakarta, Bandung is more subdued. I live in Bali. We like earthy Mediterranean colors. Resort like things. And I remember I traveled to East Java, and the houses, they would look like they would always have a strong color that pop: green, bright yellow, orange, like things I would not even think of putting on my walls, but vibrant.
There's a connection between the space, what is the area, and then the people. Generally. So I think there's a distinction between that, but mostly because we are in Indonesia and we live in a tropical country, so it's a bit different with country like UK. the clouds is different, blah 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 is different.
The light is different.
The light
Yeah,
is different.
the light is different. The sun is different.
Yes, exactly.
So sometimes some Indonesian or some clients talks like, I want my apartment to be like in somewhere in overseas, like somewhere in Scandinavian, something like that. So we make it like a little bit cold.
Yep.
Something like that.
So it's a question for you. So when I've traveled, so I've worked in different countries, but specifically when I worked down in Spain and Portugal, and in Spain and Portugal, there's a big expat community of kind of people who move from Northern Europe to Spain and Portugal. And what I noticed is that whenever I went into a house where there was maybe dark red, like a burgundy,
dark red,
it's sort of like a really kind of burgundy, deep red, what I found is there was always, without a doubt, someone in the family who never wanted to move. So there would be, maybe it would be an accessory, like kind of a burgundy pillow, that deep red, or maybe it would be you'd see it somewhere in the decor. And I'd always say to whoever I was talking to, I say,
subconscious.
Yep. And I would say, so who didn't want to move here? Who still feels they want to be at home? And they go, but how do you know that? And I go, well, it was the colour that told me.
Okay.
So
the deep
it's
red. It's about earth.
It's about roots.
Roots, what staying put.
And it's about home.
Yes. Oh, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to know whether just something to be curious about. That if ever someone who's maybe they've come from a different part of the country or they moved from overseas, to see whether you notice the same trend, because it was like, nah, this is just coincidence. But then when it kept happening again and again and again, and not just in Spain but in Portugal as well, it's like, okay, there's something, it's totally unconscious. And it was always, but how do you know that? And it's like, well, that color told me.
The language of color. We call it the sign language of the soul. And it's not something that we plan, but it came out on its own. And out of curiosity, when you deal with clients, when you meet clients and helping them create their homes, do you have any stories that you could share about how clients choose their colors?
A story. There is one project that we ongoing. There's a ongoing project that we do right now. The client is a doctor, and then he said like, my apartment is for myself. I like Japanese, he said. And then the balcony is right into the sunset view. And he chose that for that reason. After talking with him, I found something that is... I found something like, I think he is not only want Japanese. He is not only needs Japanese. He wants Japanese design, but not only need that, but I should add up some kind of element to feel that Japanese, because the Japanese design that he shows to me, it was like very, very neutral, very, very neutral, like very, very seamless, like there is no contrast, there is no pattern, there is no texture. It's really, really very seamless, you know. But when I talked to him, he took color dynamic psychology too, and then he said like, but my color is blue. He said like that. Oh, your color is blue, okay. And then and then I asked a little form, gene keys, if you know things like a hologram, like MBTI, but it's more like a hologram. And then I read that he is very revolutionary.
Yep.
And he needs that kind of assurance because from the family he lives in, he cannot afford that. So if he wants to choose one, he cannot do that because there is no assurance in his heart. So after talking like that, and then I changed a lot of element in the apartment.
Right.
It's not only Japanese. The shape is very Japanese because and not traditional Japanese, but like modern Japanese. It's really clean shape. It's really clean line. But then I add up like a little artworks of deep blue, and then there is kind of artworks that is a little black but abstract because shape is also important.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
We cannot put like light sofa. We cannot put things like that because there is he needs something like bold shape to make it bold, and then or earthy, like you know,
To ground him.
Like
He's blue, and you ground him with the blue.
No, the sofa is not
Okay.
blue.
Yeah.
But the shape should be like heavy and stable.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
things like that.
blue, the ether. Yeah.
Jadi we cannot put it like a lot of Japanese that he showed to us because I like Japanese at first, and then when we show him like this is what we gotta do and this is the design, he likes it. That's very, very unconscious that no, I like it, you know. Things like I thought I like Japanese, and then for my apartment, I like it. Why? I don't know, gitu.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really. So you really do dig deep into the client. Yeah, you find out about their gene keys and they digging really deep. I wonder what happened if it was a couple. Do you do the same?
If it was a couple, not all clients need that gene keys, I think.
Yeah, I mean like the digging and finding out there's say one person, but if two people, say just got married and they're getting married and they're buying their first house, the first home thing.
Okay, first we gonna ask their birth date and we're gonna ask their birth date, and then we choose to combine which one needs to elevate and which one needs to tone down, things like that, and which parts of the house that needs to be hers and needs to be him, things like that. So there should be win-win solution in the house, or there should be like persetujuan agreement between the couple and us how to do their home. So we ask them, but there is kind of different solution to the user that is more than one person. Sometimes it's like 4, their kids, their maid, their parents, sometimes they're co-housing in one house. And then there is a little story too that it was a client, but then she chose only first stage of the design works, because after I asked some question from the discussion from the first kick meeting, and then we provide her with the house that she needs, she finally understand that she wants to get divorced with his husband.
Oh wow.
So it was that kind of question that makes her think, what kind of space do you want? Why do you like to spend your time there? And blah, blah, blah. And then after the first session of design, he said like, wow, your questions make me want to change my...
Not just my house.
Not just my house. So,
Yeah.
I know you have a story about that, Mark.
Which one?
About the divorcing.
About the...
Let's start with how a couple choose their first home.
You mean the
Choosing a home. Like, how do you? I know you work with people who wants to moving in.
Yeah, sure. So it's similar to you, kind of like we look at dates of birth, and then the dates of birth come out as a color, as two colors, and then we look at a similar kind of thing is like how do they complement each other, how do they, where are the stress points, and then we actually add those two colors together, not blend the colors, but then we create a third color, which we regard as the color of the relationship. Because to me is when you go into a relationship, there's you, there's the other person, and then there's the energy of the relationship. So there's always a third.
The third is a relationship.
The third is the energy of the relationship.
Yeah.
And so that is the color that we would then look at putting in, if there was no children, that color would then be the main color that would be in their personal space.
Yes.
Because that would be, or it could be maybe, let's say, if that color was yellow, obviously we wouldn't put that everywhere, but we'd find ways of accessorizing or in kind of soft furnishings, but a way of bringing that in. Because that would always be, let's say, every relationship has its stress points, but that color and that space would always be the harmonizing space.
In some certain spots.
Yes. Yeah. And that would be this is where we come back to.
So after finding out about the individual colors, then we can find out about the color for their relationship, and then we use that color to add on as decor, if appropriate, of course, right? As decor to their house, or is it the whole house, or just a particular place where they like to hang out?
Let's say if it's the whole family, let's say there are children as well. So everyone who has their space has their own space. We will always find their color. So let's say you've got a family and their children, you'd find out the couple's color, but then you would find out each child's color. So then in their bedroom or again in their space, there would be bits and pieces, maybe not as on the walls, but
massive as that.
Yeah, but just something, and maybe a piece of art or something, just as that reminder of this is you. This is the essence of you. And then we'd add all of that together, and then in the family space, then there would be a family color. So there's a couple color, and there's an individual color,
and a family color.
And then there's a family color. And then in that social space, then we would make sure
like
there was
living room,
anywhere they come together. And again,
dining area.
Yep. So then it's almost the sense of this is us. And then because nowadays families travel and maybe the children go to universities and they go to different places, then you can actually, I always say, create some kind of image, like personal art or a mandala or something, and then families have their own little WhatsApp groups. And then you make that as the image. So your family is always connected through those colors.
Good way to keep the family together in the home, not in the house, because their children have to grow. Children have to grow and be independent, but energetically keep them
so
together.
So everyone's always connected through this one color.
That's so nice.
And then it's the sense of also that's the color that's going to bring harmony back to the family.
That's so nice.
That's so nice. I got a lot of ideas now.
But, sometimes our clients come from like a strong family and then a dysfunction family. There's a lot of background family for the client. I wonder, because color is one aspect that influence the user to be better. But at some point, it was like just influence. The other aspect is about their self to be more harmonized within the family. So I just wonder, like, can we heal like one broken family and then using colors, influenced colors?
Because its color is, well, firstly, it's non-threatening. It's totally innocent. And so it bypasses, let's say, any of the patterns, any of the challenges and the disharmony. It bypasses all of that, and it just gets straight, and it says, okay, this is what brings us all together. So from that aspect, and equally, when you talk about there can be dysfunctional in the family, sometimes I found that when you might suggest a color, people will go, no, it reminds me of. You can say, oh, why don't you have this color in your room or in this part of your apartment or whatever? And they go, no, it reminds me of this, and this in my family, in my past history. So it's not possible.
Or they just say, like, I don't like this color. And then case closed.
Well, but then, from my perspective, because I'm always a little bit curious, because to me, colour is always innocent. It's us that makes it guilty. So when someone says, I don't like this colour, of course, I understand about it's different to when you put it on a wall, you might not want to put it on a wall, but you might want to dress with it, or you might not want to dress with it, but you put it. But when someone says, I don't like this colour, there's always a story behind it.
This is the part where we take the color further than fashion and interior.
And say, well, okay, where does it take you to? What does it remind you of? And it will always go somewhere.
Okay.
It's a bit like color is a bit more subtle, but like you can be listening to a song on a radio and immediately it will take you back to a memory of a situation, something when you go, oh yes, or you walk into somewhere and then you smell something and it's like, this reminds me of.
There's a memory with that.
Yes. Color, exactly the same thing, but it's much more subtle.
It's much more subtle.
Yes. And people will say, I won't like this. Like, for example, some people will say, I don't like this. And you'll say, why is it? And if they've been to boarding school or school, they'll say, it reminds me of my school uniform.
So there's a certain event in their life or phase of their life that they dislike.
Yes.
And that color reminds them of that phase in life, or a certain event, and that sticks with them.
Yes, and sometimes, though, what can happen, I don't know whether you found this, but sometimes when we have an experience with color, we can psychologically stop seeing the color as it is.
Yeah, and if we like some certain color, we start to see a lot of that colors pop up everywhere. Yeah.
So like, I remember working with a lady, and kind of she was saying, "Oh, I can't find, I can't find a partner. I've tried, nothing ever works out. I've met," and it was like, okay, so simple with color. It's like, so what color is a happy relationship? Because color is a language, so you can always ask. And she said, "Oh, it's spring green." And I said, "Well, what color is not having a relationship?" And she said, "Oh, it's dark green." And I said, "So what kind of?" And I was asking her, and I said, "So what kind of spring green do you mean?" To get it really specific. And she said, "Oh, like this, like this, like this." And I was sitting there, I was in her house, and I was sitting there looking around, sort of doing this, because I'm thinking, she's saying that's spring green, but actually it's bottle green.
I see. So unconsciously, she's putting color that says to potential mates, stay away.
Yep. And also what she was seeing, literally and this is actually a thing, that psychologically we can stop seeing specific shades and tones of color because we associate it with something, so we literally block out the ability to see it.
Oh,
That
so we
is
blind to
so
that certain
Yes.
things.
Yep. And what was interesting is about her story is when we, of course, like you kind of know, is we can never just stop at a color. When someone says, "Oh, I don't
No.
like this color," or when we do
No.
this, we always have
That's
to.
somebody
just have to
knocking on
kind
our
of
door.
just have to take it a little bit further. And so I said, "Well, what would you, when you think about this dark pine green, what kind of thing do you associate?" And she said, "Oh, kind of, it's loneliness, it's this." And I said, "Well, have you," and I was exploring her, "have you had a relationship?" She said, "Oh, yes, I had my first great love when I was like 17, 18, this was back in the 1960s in the UK. And she said, yes, we were kind of engaged, we were going to get married, but then equally it was the time when the UK was allowed people to go around the world and say, go to this part of the country, go to this part of the world." And her fiance had the opportunity to go. But she didn't want to go because she came from a very close-knit family. And so they decided that it was best that he went. And so they separated. And on the day he left, he came to visit and things like to say their final goodbyes. And as he walked off, she was standing at the door waiting. He went down the path and out the garden gate. And she was standing there hoping he was going to come back. And then I said, "So tell me what's around." And she said, "Well, on this side there's some trees." And I said, "What color is this tree?" And she said, "Oh, it's a pine tree."
Oh, there you go.
Which is dark green.
There you go.
So psychologically, emotionally, she was still stuck
In that moment.
In that moment, in that memory.
and she'd filled her house with the memory of him.
I see.
And gradually, as we
see.
worked,
Yeah.
she started seeing what I saw and all the dark green. And she said, "I can't believe I've filled my house with this memory." And maybe 6 months later, she met and as far as I know, they got married and lived happily ever after.
That is such a beautiful story. How
So-
color can be so powerful
help.
Yes,
to
but-
help or not helping.
But I do say that it explains why I don't get many dinner invitations to people's houses, because they were always worried. They always say,
I'm
"So
worried."
we would love to invite you to dinner, but we've just redecorated and we don't want you to."
So very anxious if you
Yeah.
gonna command on.
Yeah. So they kind of they you know how some of the horses, they put blinkers on so you can't see. They'd say, "We'd like to invite you to dinner, but we want to blindfold you."
But us as friends, we can definitely brave enough to say, "Let's come to our dinner in our house, Mark, and please don't say anything."
No. I do
Just
switch
say
it.
wisely.
Just say, "This is nice." No, so I do switch it off. It's just like it was just something that was very noticeable, and it was really stayed with me, her story.
Yeah. It's understandable.
Yeah.
I learned so much today about how color and having a certain color in my house now have affected my family. and from this conversation, I'm happy to say I don't have anything to change in my house, hopefully until Mark sees it. So, but I'm curious to know, Mbak Ratih, I hope something can help you from this conversation that you can add on to enhance your work.
For others first, that I want to add a little comment here. Maybe you can start from your personal space, and then the first thing you have to do is cleaning out. Really, really, sometimes it's like a lot of messiness here and there. So the first thing you have to do is clean them up. And then you can watch it like, how do I feel in my personal space? Gitu. How do I feel with this?
Yeah.
How do I connect with this? What do I want? That's the first thing that could help you to influence the space, so the space could reflect you more.
That is so beautiful. Have the space reflects you.
Yes.
Definitely not what others or do not put others' opinion on your space, but make the space reflects you. Yes, no, you turn my. Any last word you would like to say about personal spaces?
Yes, no,
Start
I
with
would-
personal spaces. Yeah.
No, I would absolutely agree with you. Is kind of make it, really kind of make it your space. Think of how do I want to feel in this space, and what colors make me feel that. But absolutely, key point: always clean out.
Yeah, clean out is really
Yes.
important.
So important, because we tend to be hoard. We hold on to stuff, and then we can't create our new space. Yeah, but always think about how does this reflect me?
And for some people, they don't use the lights very well, so a lot of hoarder, a lot of things that mess it up, and they cannot see it.
Yep.
That's
It's
the
like they
thing.
couldn't see a certain color. They couldn't see that they are hoarding. Inside, eh?
Yep.
They couldn't see that they are a hoarder, a little hoarder,
Yep.
and they could see that place is not really good for them anymore.
That's
So turn on the lights and then
In every sense of the word.
yes, in every sense of words, turn on the lights, open the window, and then clean out things.
Yeah.
And then after that, ask yourself, watch out carefully, feels it carefully. What do I want with the space that reflects me? What do I want to help me? What do I want to connect with me?
Yeah, then I'm going to close this session today with a big thank you to both of you and highlighting Mbak Ratih's question to everyone. After you clean out, ask yourself, what do I want to do with this space? What do I want to do with this space? This is a very important one. And somehow, I personally really resonated to this. Everything, especially when it's about healing, start with me, start with you. And we can expand it a little bit more now with your personal space. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye. 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 Bye.